Welcome back to Real Funny, Real Cute. This is episode 3, Navy 212, part 2. For those of you who are just now chiming in, make sure to check out the first 2 episodes so that you have a better idea of what this podcast is about and who this Navy 212 is and why we're talking about him today. Now, at the end of episode 2, I said that we would finish going over the document that I sent over to the investigating officer, the one that I made after I found out that Mr. Nathanael Buzzell had made a police report against me. And that document pretty much focused on showing that the dates that he is claiming that I was harassing him, which was from August 1st, 2024 through February 3rd of 2025. It's absurd. And the document pretty much is to show here is why. And at the end of the last episode, we finished going over August 18th, which was just crazy to me to see how this dude had the audacity to make a police report against me, saying I allegedly started harassing him August 1st, even though 18 days into when I allegedly began harassing him, he was over there karate chopping me in the back of the neck because I was causing us to run late for my surprise birthday picnic. And now the sad achievement is not necessarily about something else that happened on August 18th, but as I just mentioned, once he karate chopped me in the back of the neck, I stormed off. I stormed off and I left to the park where the picnic was going to be. And Nate B follows me in his car and he's walking around this park, Unity Park in Greenville, South Carolina, following me around, trying to apologize to me. And not because he hit me, but because he's sorry that he didn't know that I was going to take it the wrong way. And it's around this park where the achievement is really at. Because January of 2025, I have now moved from Greer and I'm living in downtown Greenville area. And I'm walking distance to this park. And so a month later in February, when Nate does the police report, I don't find out about it until like March, April. But when I do, of course, I share it with my friends, right? And I'm telling them because it's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. And one of my friends asked, like, have you run into him? And I'm like, no, thankfully. And she tells me because I go running to that park where you walk your dog. And I have run into him more than once. I've run into him a couple times. And this is when things start to get interesting because it's not like he lives close by too. Like it is a pretty popular park. It is a nice park. So if he lived like 5-10 minutes away, I would understand if he was there all the time. It wouldn't faze me. However, though, that is not the case. He lives around 30 minutes away. So to and back, that is an hour drive. Now, it's a nice park, but it is not that nice. To be doing an hour drive, it's not. And so that does start to circulate my mind every time I'm going to walk my dogs because I'm trying to, know, do I need to start carrying some pepper spray or some kind of taser? And now I did believe my friend, but as y'all can tell by the evidence and the receipts, the way that I like to show them, to me, I prefer to see something, firsthand. And so I decide to try and verify that that is accurate. So I get on Instagram and I unblock Nate B. And I scroll through his profile real quick. And sure enough, pretty quickly, I noticed that he is indeed going to this park pretty often. And by the looks of it, he was in his healing era. Now, I don't understand why this park would become part of your healing journey. I just would assume you would maybe choose a park closer to you, maybe a park where you haven't followed your ex around, apologizing for hitting them. But I mean, to each his own. And the more I scroll, the more that these posts start to get under my skin. Because, and no pun intended, but then I noticed that he has a new boo. And of course, a Latino brown. It did not shock me. That part was not a surprise to me. For me, it was the fact that he had taken his new boo to this place. And it wasn't upsetting because I was just in like the Olivia Rodrigo kind of mindset of like, oh, I know you get deja vu. Oh, I bet you do. No, it was more of the fact that one of his posts at this park was hashtag life is good. And I mean, I couldn't disagree with him though. In a way, he was not wrong because I'm like, yeah, I mean, think about it. He's already on to the next brown guy, right? The next brown guy. He had just filed a false police report. He had already gotten me fired. And then his job, the detention center where he got me fired from, was then trying to assist him with getting me arrested. So, I mean, and here you are at the same park where you were the one following me around, apologizing for hitting me. And now you're here with your new boo, your new brown boo. For Nathaniel B. Hashtag life is good. So I couldn't even disagree with him. But that is all the side chisme regarding August 18th. Now, the next dates that I include on the document are September 7th through 9th. And I will give you a little bit of context because the reason that I include these on the document are because this is when he is asking me to move back in. And on the police report that he filed, he did say that he moved out in August, which is true. Towards the end of August, late August, he moves out. And now I was confused when I found out that he was moving back in with his former roommate because he had already lived with this roommate before. Actually, August of the year before, August of 2023, he moves in after facing like a eviction. He takes out this predatory loan and then he gets on Facebook Market. He finds a room to rent. He moves in and then he finds out that it was a bad decision because this dude was a bit unhinged. And I believe what Nate said about him because I found the public index records myself that show that he has a drug problem, right? And then I went a couple of times and he did have this dog, Nate's former roommate. He's cute, but that dog is vicious. So it was a bit hard for Nate living there to the point where he was trying to move out. But given that he just had a recent eviction and had already taken out a loan to move out to this one place, moving out wasn't really something he could do at the time. And this is essentially how he ended up living with me and my family, because I had the brightest idea to ask my family if he could live with us for a bit, just temporarily. And what was supposed to be temporarily ended up becoming more long term. Now, looking back at this in retrospect, I realized that this should have been the first red flag. Obviously, I could have empathized for what he was going through and been like, I know a few places that might be able to help you, give him that information and leave it there because he did not need to be dating. But the thing is, it already happened. So it is what it is. Now, fast forward a year later, this is why I'm confused why at the end of August of 2024, he is moving back in with the same roommate again, especially now that he is big boss man Nate, right? I'm just like, that's not the smartest idea, boo. You're an officer now. You already knew that this dude does all kinds of drugs illegally. It didn't make sense to me. Now, come October, September, it starts to make sense because it did indeed have to do with a brown man. This being an officer that he started working with. And I will later go into detail, but then it made sense to me. And I was like, oh, so that's why you moved out, specifically to this place. But going back to the main timeline, September 7th through 9th, at this point, he realizes that his roommate hasn't really changed. No surprise, right? So during these dates, Nate is asking me for assistance. And he's not just asking me to help him pay his part of the rent, but he's asking me to pay the full amount of the rent, his part and his roommate's rent as well. The audacity that he has. And now I might not have been the brightest when it came to everything about Nate B, but I wasn't that dumb either. So I was just kind of like, I'm sorry, I can't. I can't give it to you. And now I did make a slight comment of, also, I don't even if I could, I don't know if I would, because how do I know you're not just trying to rip me off? Because what do you mean your roommate can't even chip in like 150 towards the rent? What do you mean you have to pay the entire amount yourself? That doesn't make any sense. And then Nate, who also isn't the brightest crayon in the box, decides to start scrolling through his phone, showing me the text messages between him and his then roommate. And, he's trying to show me, that where his roommate is asking him for that. And in doing that, he passes this message that he sent his then roommate saying, my ex canceled my insurance to try and sabotage. And now he tried to pull a fast one on me. He just kept trying to slide. And I was like, hold up, ho. I saw that message, scroll back up, and then he just starts scrolling back up. And he's just like, I'm like, sabotage? Sabotage? Really? Like, I honestly didn't know what to say to that because I mean, I like 2023 when he moved in with us, I did agree to help him out for like a month or two while he got up off his feet. Now he got a job, he quit. He wouldn't stick to anything. So somehow what was supposed to be 2 months ended up becoming almost a full year. So I'm just like, I have already been trying to help. How am I trying to sabotage you? Now, the excuse that he gave me, I don't even remember it. It didn't make any sense. But I then asked him, what else have you been saying about me? And then he's saying, I don't know. Oh, nothing. Like there's nothing else. And the thing about Nathaniel B is that if you ask him a question, like sternly, back to back, he will most of the time he will crack and then he will tell you the truth. So I kept asking him, like, who else? He's like, no, no. I'm like, who else did you tell something about me, like lies about me? And then he says, well, I did tell my mom that I was like a bit worried that you were going to kick me out. And I'm like, well, let me see. And the way, the way that he made it seem, he made it seem like he had this housing insecurity because if I got mad at anything, not even necessarily at him, like I could go to Taco Bell, they could get my order wrong, and I would come back and be like, Nate, you need to leave. I was just kind of like, really, that's how it's like. I am just this ticking time bomb, and if the slightest thing upsets me, I'm gonna kick you out. Okay. And given I had seen some of his history back when Twitter actually let you see the videos that someone had liked, and I was like, what the hell? All these porn videos of Black and brown men, Hispanic men being portrayed in a very racist way. Okay, let's just put it at that. So in my mind, I'm starting to connect these dots, and I'm like, if I wouldn't know any better, I would think that you're trying to start setting me up, and now that you're becoming a detention officer, and maybe even to try and get me arrested. So that starts running through my mind, especially since in May of 2024, after I found out that he had been cheating on me, I do as most people do after they find out that they've been cheated on. And I went and did some of my own investigating, because even when they get caught, they don't tell you the full truth and they keep lying. Because I mean, I had the messages right in front of him on Grindr, the conversations, him getting like the room numbers, the apartment numbers, the talk afterwards. Oh, it was so good, etc. And he's still telling me nothing happened. I'm like, what do you mean? We're past that point. We're past the whether something happened, and you're still trying to lie about whether something happened or not. This is how much of a liar he was. So I set out to do some investigating of my own to get answers on my own. And this is when I find a voicemail from a while back before we were dating. And it was from this Black dude who honestly, the voicemail just made me a bit sick in my stomach, because the dude honestly sounded like he was a bit anxious and worried. Like he was concerned that Nate would try and go to the police, and he was trying to see like what had happened. From what I could gather from the voicemail, they had an encounter, and he was trying to figure out if there was something that he had done, if there was some kind of misunderstanding. And I brought it up to Nate. Knowing his history, I was just kind of like, what happened? And does it have something to do with your search history that goes back to like 2017? But he denied that it had anything to do with that. But now here I am, and I feel like he is trying to set me up to be like these dangerous people in these videos. So I started to get concerned, because I'm like, this dude is trying to set me up. And so now when Nate realizes that I'm not going to give him any money, he then starts to ask me if he can move back in. And not just like I'm going to ask him once. This was like bam, 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 to where like I had to unblock him. And that's the crazy part, because when you go back and look at the definition of harassment under South Carolina law, it's like we are well into the dates when I allegedly began harassing you. And I still don't see the messages or anything from you saying, leave me alone, don't contact me. If anything, what I do have is a message from me saying that I'm going to unblock you so that you can just calm down. Because if I did not answer, if I did not respond, if I didn't answer his Snapchat calls, he would then start calling my mom or my sister, asking them to try and get us in communication. And so I unblock him so that he can stop doing that. Now, at first, he tries to like butter me up and he's just like, oh, I miss you. I miss you and the boys. I miss sleeping with y'all. Please don't leave me. Like, I love you. You mean so much, that kind of stuff. Right. And I guess that he saw that it wasn't really working because for me, honestly, that ship had sailed. That ship was long gone near the horizon, almost disappeared. So I was just kind of like, but this is when he throws in an offer that I couldn't resist because he says like, I'll give you like my passwords and logins. Just whatever it takes to show to you like how much you mean to me. And I was like, okay, bet, say no more. Because I wanted to know to what extent, for how long he had been making me seem like this bad person. Because incluso around these dates, he blocks his ex on his own accord while he's living with this new roommate. So it wasn't me because I didn't set foot in there with that dog. So that's how you know it was not me. Nate blocks him. Then he's asking to move back in. And this is when he messages his ex. He unblocks his ex again and then tells him that, oh, my ex would go through my phone and like block and remove people. I never once, not once did I get onto his Instagram to block his ex. Like that made no sense. I literally have a message from Nate saying that he removed him. So why are you telling your ex that I blocked him? So as y'all can see, like I was concerned. I'm like, this dude is going to try and get me arrested. And so now if he's offering these logins, this is my chance to get evidence and proof of that. So I agree. And I'm like, okay, fine. You can move back in. And I'm honestly glad that I did, because if it hadn't been for that, I would have never found out that when we first met in person for the very first time, that shortly after that, he was trying to catfish me. And for those of you who don't know how Grindr works, Grindr is a proximity-based app. So the profiles that you see at the top of the grid are the ones closest to you in proximity. And the farther down the grid that you go, the farther away from you that these people are. And the thing now is that Grindr is very stingy. So their subscriptions are hella expensive, and you're only really allowed to message like the first 20 to 30 profiles. After that, you have to get some kind of subscription. But the main thing, and the reason that I was concerned, is because at the time, around the time when we first met, Nate was living in TR, I was living in Greer, and now Greenville County might be small, but it's not that small. So there are plenty of homosexuals from between Greer and TR, where if someone wanted to try and catfish someone successfully, the best way to do it would be within close proximity. That, or if you had one of the subscriptions that allows you to change your location so that you can see the profiles in that area. Now, as I've mentioned before, he was facing an eviction around that time. Now, where his money and his brother's money was going to, I don't know. But I can tell you this, it was not the Grindr Premium subscription or the Grindr Extra, whatever it is, Unlimited. And those are all the facts that I have from the account data that I was able to see. So my best guess is that he was driving around trying to catfish me. That's what makes the most sense. And given how he was pulled over in January, on the same day that my court case was accepted in the courts, and that it became public knowledge and you could find it on the public index, and he was pulled over just a few minutes away from my parents' house, I'm just making an educated guess. So I'm gonna let y'all do what you want with that information. This is why I was glad that I was able to get these account logs. Otherwise, I would have never known that he had been trying to catfish me shortly after we first met. And the next date on the document is September 13th. This is the night that Nate is asking me to come to my friend's birthday. So I was not begging him, being like, oh, baby, please come with me. No, he was the one asking me if he can come. And once we get to the event, despite telling me that he wanted to just be friends at this event, his hands are all over me. And there were multiple people there that were able to see this behavior. And I was like, kind of like, you need to get off me, because I had already spotted someone cute. And I was just like, what are you doing? They're going to think we're in a relationship. They're not going to want to talk to me. So all this and much more in the next episode, episode 4. September 13th, where I will have my friend whose birthday it was join me to talk about that night and a little bit more. So I will see you in the next episode. Chismosos. For all the sad chisme that is not included on the podcast, make sure to follow Real Funny, Real Cute on Instagram and TikTok.